like a Hellcat. Like a Hellcat.
Ciao ragazzi, and welcome to another edition of Serie Sitdown, World Football Index's podcast of Calcio told like it is. I'm Frank Crivello. He's Richard Carmen. Ciao, Richard.
Ciao, Frank. How are we doing on this Thursday night? We're Thursday now?
Thursday. Yeah,
Thursday.
we
Right.
thought we would change it up. We thought we would have a full slate of Azzurri games to try and digest. So we held off until Thursday. We were trying to give the Calcio Twitter heads out there a little more time to come up with some Who Won Calcio Twitter nominees. We don't have as deep a pool this time around, but we got some decent ones.
They were on international break.
Yeah. There's guys taking siestas and all that fun stuff. So it's what it is. But that's not going to stop us from having a lot to talk about here on this edition as we get ready to resume. There we are.
There we are, Frank.
So we have that to talk about. We obviously will have some Who Won Calcio Twitter. We do have some nominees. We will go through those. We will also talk about the first Champions League games coming up for our Serie A teams participating. And we have some Azzurri recap, but we will start with the decision that came down yesterday by the sporting judge. On the appeal that Napoli was hoping for with the decision for Juventus to be awarded a 3-0 forfeit win by the league for Napoli following the guidelines that their city demanded them to and doing the right thing and not infecting everybody and refusing to travel to Juventus. They tried to appeal it, and the sporting judge looked at it and said, well, you're appealing against Juventus and you're Napoli. So not only is this 3-0 result going to stand, we're going to dock you a point.
No sue for you.
Yeah.
Oh my
that's
goodness.
That's like what here in the States, what Major League Baseball should do let's say the NFL, that if, a rookie gets suspended for 4 games for violating the league's substance abuse policy, for example, and then he wants to appeal it. And you should say, well, you're a rookie. Let's make it 6 games then if you're going to be a dick. So, and that's kind of how the judge did this. And that really is pathetic. An appeal shouldn't, this is absurd. An appeal shouldn't mean of further punishment. You're appealing a decision that was already handed down. Nobody took a decision prior to this that Napoli should be docked a point.
He's like, you're wasting my time. You're docked a point.
Yeah.
My goodness. Yeah, it's according to the judge, he said that the judge from the Serie A ruled that the force majeure, the legal term for an extraordinary event of circumstances beyond any party's control, did not exist in this case. He continued on by saying that Napoli's impediment from traveling to Turin was evident only on the day of the match, but that club had already decided in days prior that they were not going to attend. So he was basically saying what the ASL and the Campania region had said, that they strongly recommended against travel, but it wasn't until the day of travel, which was that Saturday, that they said nope, no travel is allowed. And so the judge is saying, well, they had plenty of days before that to travel. It was actually the only day that they really had a ban on traveling was that Saturday.
But be realistic here. I mean, teams don't travel until the night before their match and an away match. I mean, you want your players staying in their own homes, sleeping in their own beds, and having their own routines for as long as you possibly can before you have to make that trip. It's especially in a country like Italy, which is the size of a state like Illinois or something like that. When you're trying to put it into perspective,
and there's not a second wave too.
Right? It's not an excessive amount of travel. So why are Napoli going to leave and go to Turin 3 days before their scheduled match and then have to adapt to a totally, different routine or be forced into a totally different routine? I don't buy that explanation. I don't buy that opinion. I just don't.
How would Napoli know that it was on that Saturday it was going to be canceled? How do they know? Exactly. How do how do they know? I mean, the whole thing stinks. The whole thing is weird. And we can talk about this in terms of Juve privilege and all of that other stuff. But what this has done, what this ruling has essentially done is it has told the rest of the league, if you have 13 players who are testing negative, pack up and make your trip and go play. Yeah.
Exactly. And they're setting a precedent in an effort to make sure that they play the games and they get it in. I still think that there should have been some degree of flexibility to exercise some common sense, that if there was some kind of an outbreak, if there's an issue here, there's an issue there, that you have to be sensitive to that and then maybe breach protocol for specific cases. I felt with Napoli being exposed to Genoa having an outbreak, I felt that this was one of those sensitive cases, and Napoli were right in not traveling. And then obviously when they could travel, they were told they couldn't. So they stayed home and they followed the ordinances or whatever it is. So it's just it stinks to get punished for.
Did you hear what the governor of Campania said? His name is Vincenzo De Luca. He said he called Juventus's actions embarrassing. He said the protocols mean nothing when weighted against the law and public health. And he's got a point to an extent. If you look at it, if you take feelings away, you look at how it is. All the teams did agree to the certain protocol that has to happen. 13 players, like you said. As long as you have 13 players, you can still play the game.
Right.
And so from that aspect, I can see why Juve is like, well, that's what the law says, and I take away all the feelings of how I actually think. Based on that, Juve did what they were supposed to do. And if you took it just based on that face value like that, Napoli maybe should have traveled. Yeah. But the way I actually feel, I think first of all a loss and then a docking of points was ridiculous. And I know there's a lot of parties that say that no, that's a perfectly fine result by the judge. Even the docking, they should have docked more points. I don't know. I don't feel that way. I think Napoli were gypped on that. We were talking about this last podcast, how Agnelli and Juventus could have came on a better light to the rest of Serie if they said, you know what, yeah, we agree. This is something they should probably back off of, and let's just hold it off. But on the other hand, did they really have to? No. Do they have to? No, they don't. They probably don't care what the rest of the league thinks about them. It's probably not going to change much. So they're like, you know what, we're just going to go with the law says, what the protocol says that we all agree to. So I can see both sides to it. And then, that's kind of what the judge is saying too. But just because it is what the law and protocol states doesn't mean we have to agree with it. And I know majority of people do not agree with it.
And I think that it's just because it's largely because it just defies any level of common sense here. And then on top of that, you're appealing a decision. You shouldn't get a further punishment. I mean, docking a point should not have been in play. This should have been about the decision that was rendered by Serie and Lega Calcio. There should not have been additional punishment here. That's at least the way, The only thing I can think of is that there's precedent stating where teams didn't show up for a game and they automatically docked them a point, and maybe that's how he looked at it too. Maybe just from a legal standpoint, this is what's happened in the past. This is what I'm going to do now.
I don't know. I know I saw a quote by Agnelli talking about De Laurentiis, and he said Napoli president De Laurentiis sent me a message, and I replied that we, as always, abide by the rules. And so he wanted to postpone the match, but we have regulations that tell us how to proceed. Every industry has its rules, and we need to respect them. I don't think the ASL of Naples can intervene in the FIGC protocol. And that last part, I don't know if I agree with that, because I would think that the local laws or laws in general would supersede a league. That's just me. I mean, I would think if the United States came out and said no traveling around, NFL can go ahead and keep traveling and playing the games. That's what I would think, but I don't know. I don't know enough about this to fully argue either side, I guess.
You would think ordinances and you would think law would prevail over a league.
Yeah.
You know, the league is not law.
Yeah.
So it's so bizarre, but it has set a precedent for what they have to do. And the fun part is, and I said this when it happened, now Ronaldo is COVID positive, Weston McKennie is COVID positive. And they have to travel to Crotone. And the immediate thing when I saw the Weston McKennie news was I said, Juventus better still travel their asses to Crotone, because if they don't, all hell is just really going to break loose here.
Well, it's funny. Well, I don't know about funny, but just before the Azzurri's first, I think it was the first game against Poland, or maybe it was a game against Netherlands, a bunch of the Juventus players were saying, oh, they're not allowed to leave out of Turin. They're supposed to stay because of the COVID stuff. And it was like, people were like, I know no Juventus players played in the first game with Poland, I believe. And I think that's because of the travel ordinances or whatever in turn. But that
is actually true, because I'm looking at Bonucci was there
in the first game.
Against Poland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Bonucci played, and
I know people are complaining about that. So
let me just look at their substitutes bench. Chiellini was on the bench.
Oh.
So they were there. So it's interesting, but it's one of those crazy things. But they've set the precedent now, and they have set the tone, and everybody's going to have to follow this. Even Juventus, if they get into a situation, if you've got 13 players, and if it's Pirlo's 13 worst players, tough shit. You need to make the trip. Yeah, because if the second that something changes.
And I think we're going to have two sides no matter what. It's going to be the legally, Juventus is right.
Right.
But based on everything else, everybody else thinks Napoli's right. So it's
right.
However you want to look at it.
So, let's see. I know that our friend out in Australia, Frank, thinks that this isn't going to be the only 3-0 forfeit and docked point. He thinks there'll be at least a few others. We'll see how the season goes, and we'll see how the clubs react to the opinion that the judge rendered. You want to uphold the 3-0, that's fine. I don't think the docked point should have been in play, because that wasn't in the original ruling. But I have a lot of family that are lawyers, and I know enough to be dangerous. I never went to law school. That's at least what I would have suspected the judge would have done. I was not ready for any additional punishment, and I'm sure Napoli fans weren't either. So
yeah.
So we'll have to see what happens, but the Derby della Madonnina, this is going to shape what's going on with that game. We'll talk about that in a little bit. So, but let's change gears and talk Azzurri. They had that feel good against Moldova, to get things started. It was a promising performance. It stirred up some things and so forth to prepare them for these Nations League games against Poland and Netherlands. And they opened up against Poland, Richard. They played it's Roberto Mancini, and he plays a 4-3-3, and he ran out with Donnarumma in goal. Played a back four of Florenzi, Bonucci, Acerbi, and Palmieri. He went midfield of Nicola Barella, Jorginho, and Marco Verratti, and then a front three, Andrea Bellotti leading the attack, and flanked by Federico Chiesa and Lorenzo Pellegrini. Thoughts on the lineup? I mean, the obvious glaring thing, and the one thing that I'll say from watching the Netherlands game, I think over the course of these two games, and one of the underlying themes that a lot of people really didn't talk about, Lorenzo Insigne was sorely missed.
He certainly was. I think Pellegrini did well in both games, I thought, but I think they're missing that piece. Like you said, Lorenzo Insigne was sorely missed, I think. Azzurri fans can't wait to get him back on the pitch there. But for the most part, I think the defense and midfield, certainly midfield, are looking good. I think Italy is almost there. They're a striker away, a consistent striker, a striker who can score away from being a really good team and a deep threat into Euros. So wrapping up Nations League, and we get to see all three strikers this week. And when I saw this lineup, I was like, okay, let's see what Belotti can do. I mean, it's every striker should get their chance. We obviously knew we were going to see Immobile in the next game, more than likely, because Caputo started the last game. And so I was interested to see Chiesa as well. I was curious about that one, but overall, I thought it was a pretty solid team. Happy to see Acerbi back there with Bonucci. Yeah. At least an anchor back there to help Bonucci out. And Emerson on the left back, he didn't do too bad. Blonde hair just without.
This game ended 0-0. Italy had 61% of the possession in this game with 16 shots, just 2 on target. So Fabianski was not troubled. Looking at the poll, I mean, real quick on the Poland side, a very encouraging sign for them and a very encouraging sign for Serie and for Cagliari. Really good game from Sebastian Velukovic. Yeah. Playing there on the back line. There's a reason why Belotti and then followed by Caputo were very ineffective. So having him back there, having his familiarity, he didn't do, he blocked a couple shots and he won a couple interceptions. He didn't win any tackles, but he was good in the air. He helped them keep the ball a little bit. They were under a lot of pressure. I mean, Italy pressed Poland. They forced them into some mistakes. But that was one of the things, at least from the Poland side, from a Serie, is in terms of banging the drum for Serie A, that I took was seeing Velukovic playing well.
What's amazing to me with Poland is Fabianski was in goal, and I'm thinking, why is Fabianski in goal? You look on the bench, you had Skorupski, you had Szczesny, you had Dragowski, excuse me. You're like, those are 3 freaking quality Serie A goaltenders. Why is Fabianski in there? But whatever. Poland does whatever they need to do. They obviously didn't need the other goalies because they weren't troubled too much. I think the thing that stood out for me, both at halftime and at full time, was, to me, it seemed, and at least from that game alone, that Belotti and Chiesa were not starter material for the Azzurri. Belotti really didn't trouble the defense at all, or Fabianski all game long. Chiesa kept having issues all game long, and he recovered himself nicely in the second game. But both those guys look out of their element, and I think Pellegrini was doing a decent enough job, but the midfielders were doing their part, trying to feed them to as best they could, and those guys just couldn't get open, couldn't do anything worth a darn to trouble Fabianski. And I thought, those two, or certainly Belotti, is probably not going to be the answer for the Azzurri in terms of striker, based on that game alone.
If I had to pick a man of the match from this game, it was Marco Verratti.
Yeah, he was good in that. He was really good in that game, I thought, for sure.
Yeah, I thought he dictated things, passed well, created chances, got people involved, and for some reason Poland had him as a danger man too, because they hacked him 5 times. Yeah, and it's like this guy. He's not like he's not like Jack Grealish and Aston Villa in the Premier League, who gets fouled 12 times a game. This isn't a guy that can run away from you or anything like that. This is a passer, so I didn't understand Poland's game plan for wanting to try to cut down Verratti, where, a passer, you don't have to try to cut down. A passer, you just got to limit his options. Yep. A guy that's going to be a little bit trickier and be able to run at you and cause some problems. Now that's a guy you're going to probably try and cut down. Right. So that I found that interesting that he got fouled that many times in this game. But it's what it is. But then Robert Lewandowski was in the collective back pockets of Leonardo Bonucci and Francesco Acerbi. A lot of that's driven by the fact that Poland didn't see much of the ball here, so there really wasn't. It's not like a Bayern Munich game where he is just going to get chance after chance after chance. Yeah. This is a Poland team that plays much, much different. They don't play high line. They don't press. They don't force you into mistakes and that sort of thing. They absorbed, and try to go the other way. And that played well in for Italy, and it made and those tactics make Lewandowski a non-factor. Yep,
I think so, and I think Poland really didn't start turning it up a gear until Carlo Ancelotti came into the match, and kind of added another element for them. And it's not like Poland has some slouches; they have some really good players on their team, and I thought that being able to basically null and void the best striker in the world It says a lot about the defense there. You got to give it Cherby credit. You got to give Bonucci credit, and even Verratti to an extent, and Jorginho being able to basically take him out of the game and worry about the rest of the 10 players on the pitch. Fabulous job defensively by Mancini's men.
Sure. So 0-0 draw there. Any other thoughts on this? I mean, I thought that it was like you said, Chiesa's not starter material. I mean, there's not much impact from him in this one. The pairing of Bonucci and Cherby, as you mentioned, was really good. I thought the fullbacks, it wasn't terribly inspiring.
Florenzi I wasn't happy about. I didn't think he did that great in that game, but yeah.
I'll look at what happened with him in this game. Won a couple of tackles, just 2 crosses. I mean, in a game when you get 61% possession, you need more from your fullbacks. You need more width. Palmieri made himself a little bit more dangerous. Emerson, that is, I think, and I think he had a chance on target there. He was he had one of the 2 chances on target, and I think that's the other indictment right now. And I think that this is going to be a recurring theme with Azzurri, with the Azzurri attack. You only got 2 chances on target. Only one of them came from your center striker. The other one came from your left back.
Yeah, and that's part of why I thought that Belotti looked like a very poor fit in that match for the Azzurri, because he just couldn't. In Serie A, he's a fantastic striker. He's a fantastic player, but he just can't figure it out in the 4-3-3 system. Yeah, he's probably played in his career, but did not look good at all. Neither did Chiesa in that match.
Sure. So 0-0. And I think that given the possession and the chances, Italy's got to look at that as 2 points dropped.
Yep.
Poland came to park the bus. They did just that, and Italy didn't look terribly threatening. So, on the whole, relatively disappointing to not come away with 3 points there. So,
yeah.
Moving on, there were actually goals in the Italy-Netherlands game.
Yeah, there actually were. It was an interesting game. First looking at the lineups for both teams. For the Azzurri, obviously Donnarumma was going to be in goal. Then they had a back 4 of D'Ambrosio, Bonucci again, Chiellini, and Spinazzola, who was an improvement over Emerson. Midfield, you had Barella, Jorginho, and Verratti. And then front 3 of Chiesa, Immobile, and Pellegrini. Frank, what'd you make of this lineup? Obviously we thought Immobile would start in this game after seeing Caputo and Belotti getting starts for their games respectively. So what do you think about this lineup? Again, fairly similar, minus the wingbacks and Immobile. What'd you think of it?
Yeah, and Chiellini too.
And Chiellini, yes.
But it's the lineup I expected to see coming out with what was available to Mancini,
right,
for this game. So it wasn't terribly surprising. What I was interested in was how Holland was going to come out with the personnel that they came out with, and that they were going to come out in a 3-5-2, which is a departure from what they had been doing. And Frank de Boer coming in and trying to change things up a little bit and using this game to do that, I thought would give Italy a little bit of an edge, because by and large, there's 1 or 2 guys in this team that maybe regularly play in a 3-5-2 for their club. That's Hateboer and Depay. You see sometimes you see some 3-man defenses with Leon. So where they know what they're doing. Most of these guys are all born of some 4-man defenses, whether it's 4-4-2, whether it's 4-3-3. So it was interesting to me to see how Netherlands would get on with this, and if Italy would try to take advantage of maybe some lack of familiarity with how they did this. And
this is a big game for the Aragni too, because Frank de Boer has not been playing. The Netherlands have not been playing well under Frank de Boer. It was a pretty strong squad in my opinion. I mean, Cillessen in goal, like you mentioned, De Vrij. It was nice to see him play. De Vrij with Van Dijk and Aki. Then in the midfield 5, Hateboer, like you mentioned, obviously Serie A experience. Donny van de Beek, Frankie de Jong, Wijnaldum, Daley Blind. And then up top, Luc de Jong and Depay were going to probably cause trouble, at least what I thought in the onset. 2 guys who are dangerous, 1 in the air, 1 on the ground. So I was curious to see how the Azzurri would stack up against them, and it was certainly a chess match, so to speak. I think Netherlands play a lot better than I expected. I thought the Azzurri should be able to run the midfield in this game, but not exactly what we saw. Totally, I guess.
the idea with Depay and De Jong, you got Depay can just play with all sorts of range. You know, at one moment he's on the left, another moment he's on the right, and then De Jong can stay central and he can stay high. And he can get service, whether it comes from Depay, whether it comes from Blint and Hatib coming forward, or through the midfield three. You know, so that's gonna ask this back line some questions. I think when you have someone like a De Jong, I think that makes the job a little bit easier for a Bonucci and Chiellini, because you know what you're going to get with a central striker like that, who's, you know, maybe a little more static. You know, the runs are going to be relatively predictable, so he's pretty easy to pass off. It's the Depay that would create the challenges. You know, and can he pull him apart enough where De Jong now finds the spaces, whether he gets in the blind side. You know, if Chiellini's off chasing Depay, is De Jong going to get on the blind side of Bonucci, which is very easy to do. Bonucci allows that to happen a lot, you know, so those are the things that you get concerned about. You know, but and then you look at their midfield. I mean, that's class. They're three-man midfield there. Frankie De Jong's an outstanding player. I thought Frankie De Jong was really good in this game.
He was I put up a tweet during the game because at one point he was just dancing around the box and nobody could do anything about it. They were just watching him. He was like doing whatever he wanted. I'm like, my goodness, come on now.
Sure,
it's good, but don't let him do that.
Sure. And then they can find confidence with the defenders that they have. I mean, Virgil is one of the best defenders in the world right now. I mean, Liverpool people will tell you that he's Maldini, which is ridiculous. But he's good.
He's good.
But win a few more things. You know, that big trophy you won a couple of years ago, win it 4 more times, because that's what Maldini did. All right. So, you know, let's pump the brakes on the Maldini comparisons. He's excellent, but you know, he's not Maldini. You know, De Vrij is interesting because, one, the experience of being able to seeing these guys week in and week out. 2, out of the 3, he's the best passer. You know, from those areas. And if they had to route one, he's got the ability to do it. So there were some nice dynamics here. The question would be, how quickly would they be able to settle in and play this system, which is something they were doing for the first time.
Yeah, and to start the game, I thought the Azzurri did well in terms of, you know, trying to boss the possession, looking really good, actually. They get the opening goal through Lorenzo Pellegrini in the 16th minute, a nice play, gets the finish on that one, 1-0. And the one thing that was worrying me, you know, in the first, 20 minutes or so was that despite how well the Azzurri were playing, I thought the Dutch were so much faster than the Azzurri. It looked like men against boys in terms of speed. I mean, they were running to everything. Obviously, the Azzurri were, like the midfielders in particular, they were using, smarts and beautiful passes, and it wasn't trying to outpace them because they couldn't outpace them. The midfield, the Dutch, and the team of the Dutch were really fast. But I thought Barella, his assist to Pellegrini, I mean, that's world-class pass. I mean, for me, man of the match, just on that pass alone, a brilliant game, brilliant vision. You watch that replay over and over again, you're just like, wow, what a freaking pass by Barella. And to Chiesa's credit, who I'm trying to slam the last game against Poland, him and Barella were having a nice give and go down that right sideline before Barella ended up making that pass across. So Chiesa had a much better game, but what we saw was that the 25th minute, the two guys we're talking about, Daley Blind was one of the guys, and also Frankie De Jong just dancing around the box, doing whatever they wanted, ended up leading to a goal in the 25th minute. Donny van de Beek level up that game. And after that, I thought the Dutch kind of turned the game on its head. It looked like it was more Azzurri in the first 20-25 minutes, and then once that goal happened, it seemed like the Dutch just got confidence in the style they were playing, and it felt more comfortable, like a weight was off their shoulders. I don't know what you thought.
I think where Italy did a lot of probing, Netherlands played with a lot of purpose. They were more deliberate going forward. Italy was trying to maybe ask some questions, and I think that certainly, to your point, Netherlands just visually looked more dangerous as a result. Now, I think that for the most part, Italy, said, you can be as purposeful as you want. We're going to diffuse you, and that's and I think for the most part they did. The goal that Italy conceded, I think that's poor tracking from Chiesa, and moments after that we come to learn that I think he at some point had some sort of a knock that slowed him down. But it's poor tracking from Chiesa that makes it easy for Blint to get in behind on that first pass.
I know on Italy's goal, Pellegrini's goal, you really like, as much as we talk about Belotti and Immobile to an extent not being 4-3-3 players, you like the movement he made to kind of help free up the defender to force that, give Pellegrini that opening towards that goal, right?
I really put an emphasis when I watched this game was to watch Immobile. I tried to extensively watch Immobile, and I took a lot of notes on what I saw. And I thought there were some decent things, but I also thought there were some issues. Now, on the goal for Italy, I thought that was, the one thing that I don't particularly like, I think that he overshows to the ball side.
Yeah.
And when that happens, you get in the way of your winger. But in this case, it worked because, he didn't go totally wide. He still was narrow, but pulled, I think it was Ake.
Yep.
All right. And then which also got Van Dijk to follow. Now that run, just checking into that area, into that space where, which was diagonal and in front of Barella. Now you pull those two guys, that created that passing lane for Barella to play that ball. And now all Pellegrini has to do is he's got to get on the blind side of De Vrij, which he does.
Yep.
And that ball's in behind everybody. Pellegrini's in and he scores. So, when you watch there's some off the ball stuff that he's figuring out that helps. There's some positioning in some critical situations that are an issue. And I'll carry on from this. 10th minute, there was a crossing situation where he duplicated the same run that Pellegrini went to the far 6 and Immobile duplicated it. And now you got two guys there, now I understand if somebody wants to tell me, okay, you put two guys there, you overload that side because there's only one defender in that area. And now you just cross it to there and your odds are good because you've got one more guy than they do. I get that. I'm more of a fan of, okay, one guy makes the run there. The other guy's got to hold his run at the top of the box. Or the other thing that we probably do is if you've got both of those guys at the far 6, then Immobile is darting to the near 6. For a low driven ball to come across that either he can flick on or he can either dummy for Pellegrini or he can flick on to goal himself. So there's a few different things you can do there. I didn't like that he just stayed static there. And I think that because he's a creature of habit in a 2-forward system where Caicedo or Correa are probably already at that. Are already at that near 6 or at the top of the penalty area that he thinks, okay, that's my run. That's instinctively where I'm going. In the 4-3-3, he's in somebody's way now. Unless Mancini makes it an intent, let's outnumber somebody there at the far. Let's outnumber their defender at the far 6 and try to get the ball there.
Right.
So there's lots of that going on. His back to goal play was all right. It wasn't great. I didn't get to see much of it because from the Netherlands goal onward to the second half, there was just a lot of resorting on sitting on the shoulder of the last man and hoping to get played through.
Yeah.
And
he was making those runs poorly. Like he wasn't timing them well at all.
He was offside a lot.
Static, he's offsides a lot. There was a good play where he made a nice run on the left-hand side, got free and got a shot off. It was a nice shot. It forced Cillessen to make a save. But, outside of that, I was frustrated on how he played overall. I thought he was, for some reason, riding Van Dijk's hip like he was his busboy or something like that. That's the wrong guy you want to be riding the hip of. This guy is, a really good defender. Why don't you do it off of Ake or something like that?
Well, no, in the 20th minute, he actually he had a great run, a nicely timed run, and it was a high ball over the top.
Yeah, that's the one.
Where he got past Van Dijk. What he does when he gets the ball, Van Dijk recovers. Now, Immobile forces a pass, and I believe it was to Chiesa, and Chiesa was marked, across the box. And I think Taylor Twellman made the comment about a midfielder, I think it was Barella, coming forward that Immobile held it just a little bit longer. Barella was coming where he could have dropped it to him. I actually want Immobile to take Virgil on, as crazy as that sounds with how good Virgil is as a defender. You got that's a 1v1, and good strikers are going to recognize that and say, all right, I'm just going to beat this guy and score. Guys that want to score goals, and don't get me wrong, Ciro Immobile wants to score goals. It's evident. Yeah. 3-time Kobalt Yeti. But in that moment, regardless of who that defender is, you got to beat him and create your own chance. And I wish Immobile would have done that in that particular moment. And I think there was one other moment where he got in and timed it well, but then after that, the Dutch figured out that that's what he was going to do. They started trapping him offside. They started reading that a little bit better. So then that option was gone for the rest of the half, even though Immobile in Italy just persisted with it.
I think, oftentimes, I should say there's a small group, there's a small segment of the Azzurri population who are so in love with their team that they're blindsided about anything else. And like, if you talk bad about the player, you're talking bad about them, and you're screaming blasphemy. I think we have that occasion with, I know Milanisis have done this in the past.
Sure.
But you talk about Immobile, and they're like, whoa, what are you talking about? He's a great goal scorer. Like, he is, but he's not in the system. And as much as we want him to be, we want him to have that Serie A form. We all do, but it's just not working out yet. I think it could be a system where it works with him and maybe Caputo out there. I don't know. I don't think him and Belotti, we tried that in the past, and they're too similar to do that. Him and Caputo, yeah, that could possibly work. But it's some reason he's not reading those runs just right, and midfielders aren't getting it to him. I get it, but right now their main issue right now is scoring goals, or a striker that's going to score the goals consistently. Yeah, I know he has 3 goals, 3 assists, but against who? Armenia and Liechtenstein and stuff like that. It's funny because I was looking at the statistics on how often Mancini plays certain players, certain strikers, and of the there's been 4 teams they've played that have been solid teams, and the teams that are in their grouping in UEFA Nations are 3 of them, and Immobile's only played like half of those games. Now I don't know if Mancini has something against him or just sees what we're trying to talk about. I don't know, but it's not there yet. It was better than Belotti, but still not there yet.
Here's the thing, and I got into this with the Laziali on Twitter after the Poland game.
Yeah, I remember.
Just because he's good for your club doesn't mean he's going to be good for country. Okay, and I banged the drum for Immobile all last season. It was my pick for Kobalt Yeti last season. I didn't all of a sudden, because I'm picking Lukaku, doesn't mean I all of a sudden hate Immobile and I think that he sucks. All right. It hasn't worked in big critical moments. You look at the Italy teams that have been successful and have made deep runs in competitions. Have they had when was a Kobalt Yeti winner leading the line? Okay. Or you probably got to go all the way back to 94 when Signori was partnering Baggio. I don't know if Signori was Kobalt Yeti back there, but he scored a boatload of goals.
Was Tony leading the line when he won Kobalt Yeti?
I don't know if he won Kobalt Yeti that year or if he won it shortly after that.
All right. I couldn't remember.
But I know he won. Yeah. So we'll have to look that up. But 2000, they were mixing it up at the striker position. You had some Totti, Del Piero had moments, but who was the starter in the final? Del Vecchio. Okay. 2002, you had Christian Vieri, okay, who scored a lot of goals and was very successful, but I don't think he was Kobalt Yeti at any point. I'd have to go back and look. And
it's not uncommon. We've seen this in other countries in the world. Look at Miroslav Klose with Germany. He was never one of the top strikers in his league, but he's always one of the best ones in the tournament times. And I get why we want Immobile. He's a lethal striker. He has a nose for the net. But I mean, over the last 17 games or whatever, they've only had 4 quality opponents. He's only had 1 assist in those games.
Yeah.
He got 3 goals and 3 assists, but they're against those teams, like I said, and they were 4-0, but there were some smaller clubs, and in the UEFA Nations League, that's the 4 games he did play, the team is 1-1 and 2, and like I said, 1 assist. It's not going to do much. They need more goals, more contribution from the attackers, not necessarily goals, but contributions.
And I praised his last game against the Netherlands because when I watched that game, I said this has probably been his best performance in an Italy shirt. He didn't even score any goals. He had the assist for Barella in the win.
Yep. No, that was a good game. That was absolutely a good game for him.
But that's it. Stevie is checking in. What's up, my man?
Immobile.
So this notion that just because you win Capo Cannoniere, you should be starting for your country is bullshit.
Yeah.
All right. And pardon my language. I mean, we've seen prolific goal scorers get left out of teams. I mean, you only need to go back 2 years ago. France kept Benzema at home.
Yep.
Oh, France has an embarrassment of riches at striker.
This is true.
Okay, but they left Benzema at home, and you would have thought, well, Benzema should somehow have gotten into the squad. Yeah. But Deschamps said, no, I don't need him. I'm not taking him. So, I mean, it's a 4-3-3 system. Okay, it's a 4-3-3 system, and you need the striker has to be functional in that system. And why do I bang the drum for Ciccio Caputo? Because he is a striker that plays in a 4-3-3 and does it really well.
And he always has too.
Yeah, and he always has. Now, this Laziale, and I'm not going to name him. I don't get into that. No. All right. And it's not important enough for me to remember. That's the other reason why. He sits there and he says, well, Caputo has only got 42 goals and 89 Serie A appearances, and Immobile's got 228, or like something like 228. I can't even remember the numbers, but okay. But Caputo has 42 goals in 89 games playing for Empoli and Sassuolo. Yeah. All right. Yeah. I mean,
he scored 98 goals in the last 5 seasons before the season even started. So yeah, he can score goals. Yeah. He just hasn't been in the limelight that Immobile has, and no one's taking credit for Immobile. Immobile is a fantastic striker. He's one of the best strikers in Italy and Europe. Belotti is a fantastic striker as well, but just because you're a fantastic striker in the league doesn't mean you're going to be a fantastic striker for your national team, and that's the thing we're trying to drive home. Forget your club allegiance aside. It's what's the best thing for your country to get them to perform, and sometimes your best players are left off. Like Steve says, Baggio was left home in the 2002 World Cup. I mean,
that's right.
So.
That's right. I mean, in '98 we had, I think '98 the partnership was Baggio and Vieri, if I'm not mistaken, in France. If it wasn't, it's darn close to it. So you never knew you had long hair, Richard.
Yeah, I got long hair, man.
Yeah. So this notion that I mean, it was such a short-sighted opinion to just say, well, he's been Capo Cannoniere 3 times, he should be Italy's striker. No.
So what?
Your striker needs to function within the system that the manager puts in place. That's why Benzema was sent. That's why Benzema stayed home and doesn't have a World Cup medal. Okay. Because Mbappe was functionally more of a fit for what Deschamps wanted to do. Giroud, when called upon, was functionally more of a fit for what Deschamps wanted to do. Griezmann, obviously. Okay, so it kind of stuck in my craw that was the argument. And it's just like, listen, you want to bang the drum for your guy. I'm not. You're a fan, fine, but be realistic. I'm a Milan fan. And I can't remember the last time I banged the drum for a Milan player to start for the Azzurri. I mean, I don't even, Donnarumma goes without saying that he should be the starter, but I've not said a thing about Romagnoli. Part of it's because he's hurt, but also because I get that there's a pecking order of defenders that are really good right now, and Romagnoli will eventually get his opportunity.
The last time I banged the drum was Maldini when he wasn't taken to the 2006 World Cup. That turned out pretty well for the Azzurri.
Yeah.
Di Natale, to Steve's point, has been left many times, and he's been one of the best strikers during his career. So just because league success doesn't mean it's going to pan out on the team. Now, I think you could have a situation, like I said earlier, of maybe a Caputo and Immobile working together, because Caputo brings a different aspect and element that maybe he could free up Immobile. That could work, possibly, because Caputo can play at any of the 3 positions up top, not just the striker position. So that could work. Maybe I'd like to see that in a friendly to see if that would work, but Immobile's got to show us more.
I actually like the ceane Immobile partnership in the latter stages of this game against the Netherlands, and I thought it was very smart of Mancini to change his tactics and be flexible and shift, to a 2-man.
There was a difference in the team when Can jumped in. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then when Florenzi came in and played as a right wing back, and then they went with a 3-5-2 look. Yeah. Immobile, I'll say this, watching him in those last 15 to 17 minutes of the match, Immobile looked more comfortable. There was the runs made more sense. Ken was doing, okay, he saw Ken's doing this, I'm going to go do that. Okay, and now he's sitting on the back shoulders of these defenders, and he made great runs. He made great runs that weren't duplicated. The only problem was the service just wasn't getting to him.
Yep.
So, I mean, he looked in his element once that formation shift, and that was very smart of Mancini to make that change because it put Netherlands under some pressure. Just didn't get any quality out of it. Yep. So striker is going to be an issue for this Italy team going forward. The other thing that I probably come away with after these two games is that as much as I believe in Federico Chiesa's talent, he's in the squad. He shouldn't be starting. What do you say?
Yeah, and I made that comment after the first game. I definitely don't think Belotti or Chiesa should start, and I'm keeping faith in Immobile if they can figure out a way with bringing Caputo in the lineup. But yeah, Chiesa isn't a starter for me. Bernardeschi's proven more dangerous of the two, and people are trying to say, "Oh, you just hate because he's Juventini." I was saying this before when he was in Fiorentina. This is not the first time he's been with the Azzurri. He's been there with many times. Yeah. So we got plenty of work to see around for him. It's the same thing every time. And Bernardeschi's one of those players who doesn't play well in the league, but plays well for the national team, So maybe Bernardeschi needs another try. Or Moise Kean. He played really well for them too. So, it's I'm just not ready for Belotti. I think as much as I love Belotti and Chiesa, I don't think they should be in the starter. They should be certainly sub players for sure. They can bring something to that game, especially when you need that little X factor. Chiesa with his pace and his mobility, Belotti with his just all around skill. But starting, not so much for me.
The games where Ken was starting as the striker, and this was a year and a half ago, it looked good. I mean, I think the teams were a little more on the inferior side, but it looked like they were onto something. But then Ken can't get a game with his club, and subsequently that suffers. So his national team chances suffer. So hopefully he sees more of a run in now that he's at PSG. On loan from Everton, but that's a pretty stacked attacking pecking order that he has to try to navigate through to get those chances. So the other big takeaway that I come away from that I take from these games and from this FIFA period with Italy is that I think as this season goes on, and we're already starting to talk about it, but as this season goes on, we're going to watch Nicolo Barella become an elite midfielder, not just in Italy, but as far as world football is concerned.
Yeah, a lot of people were screaming his praises during that game, saying he was world class and this and that. Look at that pass; it was a beautiful play overall, and I think he fits well in with Jorginho and Verratti. And obviously, there's a couple other midfielders who want to stake their claim for those positions, but Barella is making that his own, man, and you gotta love the way he played in those two games, and especially the last one, and that assist. I mean, that's just mouth-watering. I mean,
he has a blend of technique and combativeness.
Yes, and you need that. Every team needs that.
That is perfect for a 4-3-3 style of midfielder. That's perfect for that role. I think that Antonio Conte has rubbed off on him as far as the combativeness is concerned, because I don't think that was something that wasn't something that was eye-popping to me when he was playing for Cagliari. Steve says against the Netherlands, if we kill the game early with all the missed chances, we win comfortable. And that's the other point I want to make about the Netherlands game before we put it, before we lay all this to rest on Italy. Knowing that you're playing a team that's trying a new system, who
are not there mentally either.
Yeah. That are taking those first 15 to 20 minutes to figure it out. You need to that's the time where you really need to get after them and put them away for a couple of reasons. One, you get the lead and you get the lead and you can get comfortable as Stevie's pointing out and set the tone for the rest of the match. And two, you make them question, why are we doing this system? Psychologically, it just completely changes. Yeah. So to allow them to hang around, and be able to play their game and allow them to be as purposeful, I think was what hurt. And it was a direct result of not taking advantage of the chances and some of the opportunities that came early. Yeah, I thought this was a poor game. Jorginho was poor.
Yeah.
In the Netherlands game too. I'll say that. And it was not Verratti was very good against Poland, not so good here. I thought Barella for me was probably the best player on the pitch overall.
Me too.
Taking away Pellegrini's goal. I mean, Pellegrini really gets a lot of plaudits because he scored the goals, but that was all Barella. For me, Barella was the best player in this game.
Yeah, I thought D'Ambrosio was actually, I would say Florenzi was an upgrade from D'Ambrosio. I thought D'Ambrosio looked very poor in that game. Daley Blind was just tearing him apart. I kept saying during the game, someone needs to help him out because he's going to get torched for a goal here in a minute. And then Florenzi came in and he added a little bit more. As much as we don't like Florenzi, he is an upgrade from D'Ambrosio, unfortunately. Maybe
sure.
It's PSG rubbing off on him.
Sure. Now the goal they conceded again, a couple of uncharacteristic things happened. I mean, Chiesa allows Blind to get behind him, but we find out it's because Chiesa took a knock and just was struggling to do any kind of recovery. But then after the Blind cross, and then Depay got off a chance, and it's just, not getting to the second ball. I mean, Italy over the years, over decades, have made a living out of winning the second ball in their own penalty area, and it's just one of those where Van de Beek got there first. These are things you don't usually see from the Azzurri. So, and
then having Frankie de Jong just waltz around to set up the whole play. I mean, I don't know what Verratti and Jorginho, probably more so Jorginho, was doing, but I mean, he just did whatever he wanted, walked in there, and then found Blind, and Blind, ended up crossing the middle, and the goal happened. But yeah,
Frankie de Jong asked Jorginho a lot of questions. I think the problem for Jorginho was he didn't know whether do I hold and protect my center backs or do I go out and try to challenge this guy.
Yeah, neither was working for him.
And I think every time he was wrong with every decision he made when it came to that too. It was one of those games, and it happens. So
unfortunately, the whole caveat of this whole thing was Poland they won against Bosnia. Bosnia had a red card in that game, and Lewandowski went off. Caroline scored as well, 3-0, and because of that, they jump over the Azzurri in the group standings at the moment. I think they have 7 points, and the Azzurri have 6 or something. It's 1 point advantage. So if you're keeping track at home, I guess, in terms of promotion and all that good stuff, there's that.
Mm-hmm. So they're in second in the group. And they'll have some work to do. I think it's I believe they get Poland at home, and then I think they travel to Bosnia-Herzegovina for the remaining group games. So there's still all to play for. There's still a chance to win the group and reach the semifinals of the Nations League, which is viable. And I think that's something they should shoot for. Hopefully we're not looking at this like we're going to sleepwalk through it or anything like that, and we're just using it as extra games. I'd like to see this, because I think that what it will do is that it will validate Mancini's project a little bit.
Yeah.
So
I think we both agree that it's a fantastic project that's coming along. Still has some ways to go, but it's almost there. It's missing a striker and a couple pieces here and there, but overall midfield, defense, good.
Yep. So let's see what happens. Your thoughts on the Azzurri. Let's go to @Serie Sitdown on Twitter or Instagram. Besides getting a crappy trophy, what do they get?
Confidence.
Like I said, confidence and validation that Mancini's project is really working.
Yeah.
But I think that it's working regardless. All right. Now the league will resume on Saturday, and we have the first edition of the Derby della Madonnina for the 2020-2021 season. I think that's what Stevie's really here for. Inter hosting Milan. Right off the bat, questions are going to be asked about whether or not this game should actually be played because of the rash of COVID positives that Inter are dealing with. Well, given the precedent set from this Juventus-Napoli situation, we're going to have to play it.
Yeah.
So let's just run down the list. Now, 6 players tested positive over the last several days. Ashley Young, Alessandro Bastoni, Milan Skriniar, Raja Nainggolan, Gagliardini, and Yonut Radu. Radu, big deal. Wasn't even going to play anyway. That just means he can't be out to hand out towels to the starters and fix them their waters and stuff like that, probably.
No.
So, but yesterday, Sempre Inter reporting that they have 2 new positive cases: Marcelo Brozovic and Andrea Pinamonti.
Yeah. The Brozovic one is a big one for sure because he's one of their better players.
And he's a Milan killer.
He is. He has always been, yeah. And especially as of late, I've been a killer, scoring some big goals, setting up some big plays. I mean, shit, the last time they played, he was just man of the match for me. So yeah, he's gonna be a big miss for them if it does turn out that he, he has to sit out anyway, no matter what. So that's big news for Inter. They definitely have 13 guys, so they should be playing. Yeah, Milan gets some good news, I think, overall too. From despite all this bad news from Inter, Milan gets some good news themselves. Yeah,
Zlatan returns, totally negative, totally healthy, and back training. Ante Rebic will not be back. Still dealing with the elbow injury. Stevie's saying tonight you had to have a Napoli fan on and make it an R-rated episode. I want my kid to listen to this. So
I'm dropping words here, left and right.
Yeah. Yep. So, but in any event, when what is it? How does Inter come out? I mean, what do they play? They're going to have Kolarov back there. They're going to have DeVry back there. They're going to have to figure out does your God help them? Does Ranocchia have to play back there?
Well, Barella's going to play still.
Barella will be in there.
Yeah. And if you go back real quick to the point you were making about Adorni Azzurri and Barella, how Conte has made him a better player. I think, with Conte constantly rotating shifts, rotating midfielders, making him question himself, he's made him work harder. And because of that, gave him that grit. Now he's like a starter, because of that. I think that's something good that Conte has done for him in his career. He's going to be difficult for Milan, no doubt about it. Obviously, Lukaku and L'Arturo are going to be up top. More than likely, Alexis Sanchez is probably going to do something good in this game. If he's not starting, he's going to come off the bench. They still have some options there, but it's obviously not going to be their A lineup for them. But it should be a good game nonetheless. I think it's a derby.
How can I not have the most caps on the show as a guest? Well, Mark Neal has the most caps on the show as a guest. I think he's going to go at 10 or 11, but
no, as a chat guest, maybe.
Oh, as far as a chat guest, you're certainly working your way up. Well, Stevie, when you and Vinny go on the Calcio Connection and want to go talk to a snake and a Laziale, and you don't want to preview the derby with us, that hurts us. Okay, that hurts us.
He's saying Sanchez is out for the derby because of
Hi, Alex. Injury. Hi, Alex. Hi, Jerry.
Oh man, show's off the rails.
I don't want to start Calcio wars. Maybe I do, just not with the Calcio Connection. I like those guys.
Yeah, exactly.
They're all right. They're all right. Jerry's a sorry bastard sometimes, being a Lazio fan, but what can you do? So he said, Presidente set that up. So all right.
Good.
Well, your punishment is you got to have me on, and you got to have me on video this time. All right.
Technical difficulties.
Not calling me on my phone.
Presidente set that up too, probably.
Yeah, he did. Anyway, let's get back on track. So Inter and Milan. Now, with all of this, it's so hard to predict, and the reality is that you talk about form. This is the one thing that when this particular derby, what I've learned over the last several installments,
nothing matters.
Form's out the window. It totally is. Now, sold. You're on Monday night. I'd love to come on and chat derby. So tell I'm just going to message Presidente and say I'm on. So, all right. I'll be my third appearance. I think I'll be the first one to be on 3 times on Milan Weekly Podcast. So. But anyway, let's get back to this. Inter, they might be patching it together. It's going to be Lautaro and Lukaku up front, as you said. Alexis Sanchez is hurt. Or stories are coming up that he suffered a serious injury. There's another story that Sanchez says, no, I'm fine. I don't know.
Vidal played well for his team for Chile, so he's going to play. He's going to be a factor.
You're probably going to see Vidal in there if Brozovic is positive and can't play. And it's probably why Inter went after all these guys and loaded upon all this so that they could have this kind of depth and be ready for it. Hakimi is back. I can't wait to see the battle. Hakimi versus Teo is going to be epic. On that
Neither of the guys going to play defense. They're just going to constantly attack each other. It's going to be awesome for the neutral. For us, maybe not so much, but it's going to be definitely a spectacle. 2 of the best guys at their positions in the league going at it. It's going to be great. Yeah, it's like you said, it's a toss up. Who's going to win? 2-1 Inter, 2-1 Milan. Who knows? Form out the window. It doesn't matter. We've seen when one team is hot, the other one's been not, and the other team wins.
Teo's getting booked.
Oh yeah.
Teo is going to. I mean, Teo is going to get booked at some point. In this game, it's just going to. Because for what he offers going forward, and for his power and his ability to get forward defensively, there's some liability issues, and then dealing with Hakimi now, he's going to be late at some point. That's going to get him shown yellow. That's if there's odds, and I don't have sportsbook in Wisconsin, which stinks because that's something that I probably would bet on.
1-1.
Yeah, as a player prop, Teo getting booked.
Vidal too.
Yeah, Vidal probably as well.
I get a red.
Yep. We'll see. Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
At least as a Milan fan.
Yeah.
But the one thing is that form means absolutely nothing, because there's been times where I've seen Milan in great form and Inter struggling, yet Inter win. I remember I think like a year and a half ago or something like that, where Inter won 3-2, and everybody, that was Gattuso's last derby. And everybody thought, well, Milan's on a roll. They're going to win this. Inter is sputtering a little bit. This is going to be Milan, and then Lautaro destroys them.
The last game they played against each other, Milan were hot. They started off with 2-0 lead in that game, and Inter stormed back and win that game. And we've seen the opposite too, where Inter's been hot and Milan won. So anything can happen in these derbies. Obviously, Zlatan gets up for these games, but we know Arturo gets up for these games as well. And Lukaku is certainly going to be a factor in this game. So which defense can hold the other attack the most is going to be the key in this one. Midfield is going to be an interesting battle for sure. Two really good midfields. Obviously the Inter one's going to be a little depleted, but
still really good.
It's still really good.
What's available to them? Sensi, Vidal, Barella, Eriksson. They've got options. So it'll be interesting to see what Conte actually conjures up.
Yeah.
So, just because I'm a Milanisti, I'm picking Milan to win, and for no other reason.
Yeah.
I still think with what Inter can bring, even with all of the COVID cases maybe having to sit out. Sensi's booked. He can't play. Thank you. That kind of helps. I'm going to go with Milan to win 2-1. I think that Ibra is going to get at least one of them if he doesn't get both. I think that, knowing what we've learned from Ibra after all of these years, this feels like one of those games where he just kind of returns in glory and is really pissed off about how the last derby went, as many of the Milan players that are still there probably feel. And it's like, okay, because after that, and there was the Genoa loss before the break, and then coming out of the restart, they've been scorching hot. And I think that this is the game that they're positioning themselves. Now, the win over Juventus a few months ago was very impressive, but this is the game for them. This is the one where I said, okay, we are here and we're a thing, and this has to be the game. And I think that Milan are going to nick this. It's going to be a 2-1 win for them. I think this is going to be a crazy competitive game, as you would expect from a derby. But I'm going to go with the Rossoneri to win.
Yeah, and another thing you got to keep an eye on is that Hakan's been playing really well lately. He's obviously trying to play to show that he wants to deserve that $5 million a year contract. He had a goal and assist for Turkey against Serbia, against Sergei Milinkovic-Savic's Serbia. Did really well in that game. He's playing really well, so you gotta imagine that he's going to be either on the score sheet or on the assist sheet, whether with the passing or whatnot. So, yeah, it's a tough game. I hate these games because we think too much with our heart, and I too think a 2-1 victory for Milan, but I could easily see a victory for Inter as well. It's a derby. It's a derby.
Yeah, if Inter wins, I won't be surprised either. It's just one of those things. You're never going to know what to expect.
But I am picking Milan 2-1. That's what I'm going to say.
Yep. Quickly navigating just the rest of Serie. Before that, you got a heck of a game. You got Napoli and Atalanta Saturday morning, kicking off 9 a.m. East. Yeah. How does Napoli come out after everything that's been ruled against them?
Atalanta.
Yep. Is Atalanta, how are they going to approach this? Because we've seen this on a couple of occasions prior to a Champions League game. We don't often see Atalanta going out and doing Atalanta things, as we say. I actually like Napoli's chances in this game, and I'll tell you why. The way they've started this season, Steve talking about the derby, saying that he thinks a draw is in the stars. I mean, any result is going to happen right now, considering the forms of those two teams. But let's Napoli and Atalanta. Given the start that Napoli's gotten off to with Osimhen, and the confidence that they're generating with his presence, coupled with the fact that as wonderful as Atalanta are going forward and all of the goals that they're capable of scoring, their defense is a big-time liability. At least what we've learned through the first couple of games watching them play. Belotti made it look easy with the two that he scored. As an example, you think Lazio probably should have gotten more than they did when they lost to him. You got Koulibaly back there. I mean, I'm not opposed to the idea of Napoli winning this game on Saturday. Yeah,
that's true. Napoli are certainly more than capable of winning this game. And this, for me, it's going to be a test for me to see how good Napoli are. We've seen them play against some of the minnows and doing really well against them. But this is a team that's one of the team in Serie A at the moment, and how they play against them is going to be big, because we know they're probably going to get chances against Atalanta because their defense is not that great at the moment. But can anybody stop Atalanta from scoring? That's going to be the question for me. And with Koulibaly back there in defense, you always got to pick him. But most teams have just one striker and he can focus in on. Atalanta, everyone on their team can freaking score. So who is he going to zone in on? Papu Gomez, who's playing on the wing? No. Is it going to be Duvan Zapata? Probably. But, there's other guys that can contribute. So I'm curious to see what the discipline from Gattuso's men are going to be in that game, because that's going to be a telling tale. I can easily see a draw in this game, and a score draw. I'm talking like 2-2 or 3-3, because there are going to be goals in this game. But, both the teams are good enough that they're not going to let the other one pull away, you would think. Atalanta, of course, can do anything.
Sure.
But, yeah, it's going to be a good game. And for me, I'm going to be watching really how Napoli react to a good team. And because we know what Atalanta can do against good teams. So that watching this will tell me a lot about Napoli. If they go toe-to-toe with Atalanta or even win, you got to pick them now to put them in the top 4 automatically for the season. Because
really,
I don't know.
I mean, I won't fight it. I mean, but I don't know. I mean,
they're on the edge for me right now. They're 5th place, just behind Milan. Yeah, they go toe to toe with Atalanta, and obviously not going to be just the one game. It has to be more than that. But it's just, I'm going to put them in the conversation. Like, hey, I'm looking at this team. I'm not really sold on Juventus just yet. The rest of the teams in the top 4, I am. But yeah, they're certainly going to be in the conversation for me if they go toe to toe or they even beat them. If they beat them emphatically, for sure. But still, it's one game. But yeah, that's how I feel.
Okay. I mean, the only other thing, and for different reasons, why this one would be relatively interesting. I mean, Sunday morning, it wouldn't hurt to wake up really early for Bologna Sassuolo. That should be entertaining.
Absolutely.
But Torino Cagliari is very interesting to me on Sunday. We're talking about the redemption projects of Giampaolo and Di Francesco.
Yeah,
so
absolutely,
I think that could be a pretty tightly contested game in all actuality, but
Steve's looking forward to Crotone Juventus, the Super Classico there.
It's going to be 1-0 Juve. So
maybe penalty.
It's going to be resourceful Juve. It's going to be like, all right, no Ronaldo, no McKennie. Let's go 90 minutes. Let's just get the 3 points and get the hell out of there. And get them legitimately, right? So quick breeze through of because following this weekend's matches, Champions League will take place. And next time we're recording on Tuesday night, we'll have we'll probably have some discussion on games that took place on Tuesday. As far as it concerns Serie A teams, Lazio taking on a team that is near and dear to your heart, Richard, Borussia Dortmund.
No.
And then Juventus making the trip to Kiev to play Dinamo Kiev. Thoughts on Bologna versus Sassuolo will finish 7-6. That's why I might wake up at 5:30 in the morning to watch it.
And then go back to bed, right?
Yep. And then, My kids will be up by the time the game's over. So, yeah.
It's an interesting game. I think going to Kiev is never easy. It never is. We've seen it. Anytime going to Ukraine, period, it's never easy.
But from a climate standpoint, it actually helps to make that your first match day while the weather's still relatively reasonable in Ukraine.
This is true. This is very true. You got to favor Juventus in that matchup for sure. Kiev will probably give them a little bit of trouble, but I think Juventus experience and some of the talent they have on their team, they should be able to succeed with no problems there. The Lazio game against Dortmund is going to be interesting. We know Dortmund can score a lot of goals. We know Lazio can score a lot of goals. We're not sure how either team is, come out this season. Lazio has been a little bit on the back foot this season so far, and they've put up some results that aren't exactly the happiest thing. This is a rated G show. Come on, Steve.
It's not. We're not that far into that season, Steve, for that to potentially happen. Unfortunately,
not in Ukraine, not just yet. But the Lazio matchup is going to be difficult for them. There's a lot of firepower. Gio Reyna, the American, is playing really well for Dortmund at the moment. Haaland freaking had a hat trick, had some great goals with Norway over the weekend. So it's going to be difficult. And how Lazio can deal with that pressure and then use it to counterattack. There's no doubt in mind that they're going to put Dortmund on the attack and try to get some shots off. That might be even game, honestly.
What do you see from Meunier playing in the Hakimi role in that system? Obviously, he doesn't have Hakimi's pace, no. but what effect has he had so far?
He's had a decent effect. It's been more the Gio Reyna show that's kind of washed out the rest of that team because he's been playing lights out. But he's been decent player. He's not Hakimi. You're right about that. But he's far upgrade from what they had in the past, like Schmelzer and stuff like that, and some of those Kreutz and stuff. So he's a decent player, and he has experience too playing with PSG or whatever. So
Piszczek was never a fullback or a wingback either. He's perfect where he is right now on the right side of a back three. Yeah. So I you know what? I'm going to start getting a reputation for people thinking that I actually hate Lazio now. But I mean, I think that Borussia Dortmund are going to win. I look at Lazio. I look at it's going to be matching 3-5-2s. I think that they have the edge in the wingback positions. With I would take Meunier and Guerrero over Lazzari, and I think Marusic they've been using on the left, and I think that this is the kind of game where that situation actually gets exposed. I think the defenses are relatively equal. I think the goalkeeping, I think Strakosha is a little bit better than Burki. Yeah. But I think because of the form of Reyna and Haaland, I'm going to go ahead and give Dortmund a 2-1 win there.
Okay. I'll say a 2-2 in that game.
It'll be a good game.
Yeah, I think the key for Lazio is to really take seriously the threat of Haaland and Reyna. If they take that threat seriously, they can have a really good game, maybe win. Because Immobile is going to get his. He's going to try to get his at least, and they play fantastic offensively. Lazio do, but it's going to be a tough game, no doubt about it.
Yep. Dinamo Kiev and Juve. It's can Ronaldo and McKennie test negative in time for the trip? So those questions have to get answered. Do they not have any? Do they avoid having any more positive cases? Those questions have to get answered. I watched this Dinamo Kiev team in the playoffs, and I can't remember who they knocked out. But in any event, first of all, they have a very good goalkeeper in Bushchan, who basically was the reason why they're in the Champions League, and he's also largely responsible for the Ukraine upsetting Spain in the Nations League this past week.
Crazy.
I think he made 8 saves, in a 1-0 win. Congrats, Shevchenko. That's a famous win for him. Yeah. So one of the things that when you looked at Dinamo Kiev is that they were a sieve because their goalkeeping stunk. Well, with Bushchan, he's actually decent. So chances are going to be a little bit hard to come by. I mean, they're not going to be hard to come by. They're going to be there, but this is a pretty good goalkeeper. So you better finish your chances. And you better know what you're doing in those situations.
Earn those shots, yeah.
Right. CR7 has Trump's COVID doctor. I'm keeping politics off of the Serie sit down. So they have some useful players up front. Yarmolenko is not Yarmolenko. Who's the other fella? Konoplyanka.
Konoplyanka,
yeah, Konoplyanka. This DePena was solid. Sapraya is a striker. So there's some guys that can be a threat. I mean, ultimately, I think Juve. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw here. That trip is still difficult, even if it's right off the bat. And I think that Dinamo Kiev are going to look at this like, hey, one of the big boys are coming in, and we're getting them right off the bat, and they can play with a lot of energy. And sometimes when you're starting off a competition like this, at a league stage, an underdog, this is the opportunity for the underdog to try to get something out of it. And they're going to be fired up, and they're going to put all their eggs in that basket. So I'm going for a 1-1 in Kiev.
Okay. I'm going to go 2-0 Juve.
Okay. Let's see. I'm pissing on Serie so far in Champions League, because I've not picked a win yet. But all right, so Wednesday the 21st, Inter is hosting Mönchengladbach, and then Atalanta are traveling to Denmark to take on Midtjylland. Let's start with the Inter Mönchengladbach game. Now, you're familiar with Mönchengladbach. I've seen them a decent bit as well. They've got some guys. Now, Inter are going to be coming off the derby first and foremost. We don't know what the team shape or the setup is going to look like for them. Heading into that game and after coming off playing a derby, so will they be able to pick back up and be ready for this game? And this is a dangerous enough team for them to deal with. Alassane Playa and Marcus Thuram are very dynamic. Hoffman is strong on the set piece and on the corner kick. They've got good fullbacks, Ben Sebaini, and the right-sided guy, he's Austrian. Is that Leimer? Leimer. Thank you. I was going to say it. The one thing that I think that you can poke at Mönchengladbach is defensively they can have their issues. Sommer's not a great goalkeeper. You can get at them, and I think that this is something where Lautaro and Lukaku can definitely feast. And while Ben Sebaini is talented and good going forward, I have a feeling that, I would prefer Hakimi in that game, in that matchup. So I'm going with Inter to win this game. I think it's going to be an entertaining game, and Inter are going to win this 3-2. I think they're going to probably get shell-shocked by giving up an early goal, and then they're going to come into the game. Lukaku's going to create some things. I'm going to go 3-2 to Inter.
Inter, historically under Conte, have not done well on short rest, especially when it's a big games involved. And I think Gladbach can give them difficulty. I think if it was a straight up and they had that week to prepare or whatever, I think they would be the favorites based on talent alone. Gladbach's a good team, but Inter have, on paper, much better team. But I think Gladbach going to give them difficulties. I think I can see Gladbach scoring early and Inter getting one late, make it 1-1. That's why I'm going to go with 1-1. But it's going to be a lot more difficult than they expect. And I think because it's on short rest, that's going to be part of that they're not going to be – Conte's not going to be ready for that. And Gladbach going to give them a go because Gladbach are a decent team. They really are. Yeah. We'll see that.
Yep. Okay. So did I hear you right? You're saying Gladbach's going to win? Or...
No, 1-1.
Oh, you got 1-1. Okay.
Yeah. Steve says Lazio 0-2 and Inter wins 3-1.
Okay. And he says Juve 2-1 over Dinamo Kiev. Okay. Nice. So we've got some interesting, some changes in results. So Atalanta are traveling to Midtjylland, and I've watched Midtjylland in the playoff, and this is not a done deal for a couple of reasons. First of all, we all thought Atalanta could go to Dinamo Zagreb and on match day 1 last year and walk that game, and Dinamo Zagreb beat them 4-0. Midtjylland have some quality, and they have some goals in their lockers. So you're welcome to say 4-0 to Atalanta. Let me give the case for why Midtjylland is going to be a problem. I think Atalanta are going to win, but let me tell you that there are some players in this team that I would be concerned with. Anders Dreyer is a guy you're going to want to be careful about. Great midfield playmaker. The striker up front, Sori Kaba, he scored, I believe, twice over the two-legged playoff. A big guy, taller guy, good target, kind of the guy that has been giving the Atalanta back 3 problems in Serie A. So there's that to work with. And I want to say, there's one other player, Evander, Brazilian international, another creative player that's going to create some problems. Then you've got Pione Sisto playing there, a veteran. I think last seen at Celta Vigo, but veteran Dane international that he brings the experience to the team. So they're young. They play with some energy. They attack. They'll probably set up to try to counter Atalanta and let Atalanta have the ball, which might suit them a little bit here. And I think they're going to score.
Okay.
I think they're going to score. I'm going to say Atalanta win 4-2. I think this game's going to have a ton of goals in it. But I was impressed with what I watched with Michelin in the playoff, and I think that they are not making up the numbers in this group. They're going to probably finish last in this group when you look at Liverpool and Ajax and Atalanta in it. But they're gonna be a pain in the ass for those other 3 teams. But I got Atalanta winning 4-2.
Well, you kind of stole my thunder because I was going to already say this whole thing about they're going to be closer than the experts think, and they're going to put up a challenge for Atalanta, and then I was going to say 4-2 for Atalanta. So much for that. So I agree with you.
There you go. So those are the Champions League, Europa League. We won't. Why don't we just run off who's playing? I'm going to go through that real quick. Milan are opening up. We got Roma at Young Boys. Young Boys are always interesting to deal with. They're one of those teams that they've kind of been a bit of a fixture in European play, kind of that fringe Europa League, Champions League kind of team. I think Roma will probably come away winning that game, but Young Boys won't make it easy on them. Napoli hosting AZ Alkmaar. Should be a very interesting game. Napoli's at home. Yep. And then Milan travel to Celtic. And Celtic aren't what they used to be. This is a Celtic that lost to Ferencvaros in the Champions League playoff, like in the second round. I actually think that if they apply themselves, all 3 Serie A teams are going to come out winners. I think Napoli is going to have the hardest time of the 3. What do you say?
Yeah, I think Roma's going to win. I think Napoli should win. It's going to be a hard game, like you said, but I think they're going to get the win. I actually think Celtic could get a draw in this game just because they're home. Only reason because they're home, and they're not the same team as they had been, but maybe they get some motivation from the big derby on this weekend for them against Rangers. So maybe they get for that. But them at home, they've always historically made it difficult for teams. Barcelona has seen it recently. We've seen it in the past. So yeah, I'm gonna say 1-1 in that game.
Okay. I'll just go with all 3 Serie A teams winning. I think they're all in spots where they're gonna win here. With, like I said, with Napoli probably having the biggest tussle of the 3 teams. With what AZ Alkmaar can bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our European thoughts. Go to @Serie Sitdown on Twitter or Instagram with your thoughts. And we now wrap up with Who Won Calcio Twitter. Pod's a little light. I think our Calcio Twitter heads all went on siesta, Richard. But we do have a few we can go through. Why don't you I think we're going all the way down to. I'm like scrolling through mine right now.
Art Morelli had the first one that I saw from the week. That
is the one. Yep.
So during all this whole thing, I'll share the tweet before. So his buddy from Inter posted this picture about Alliance Stadium, and they're stronger with the 30th title. So he fixed it and changed it to #Stronzi. Nice work there, Art.
Well done, Art. That is very well played. That's actually a work of art.
Yeah.
That takes effort. Pardon the pun. All right. Adriano _Calcio, our friends over there from the Calcio guys, Adriano Di Nardo. When you pulling up to the podcast with this kit, Gia, at the Calcio guys. Hashtag who won Calcio Twitter.
So Gianni is a Napoli fan, but he also likes Roma. And so they're mocking him, obviously, putting his last name on it with the kid. Half the jersey of Napoli, half the jersey of Roma. So
good stuff. Good stuff. All right. Did Caserta Campagna make another appearance? It looks like he did. And I think he's retweeting Il Protocolo, which is at Luigi Party. The Italian is Il Protocolo comunica che l'audio orsato fu regolarmente inviato al procuratore per Corrado. Il file era contenuto in una mail con oggetto scopri come guadagnare da casa senza sforzo. Tutto fu fatto secondo protocollo, parola di protocollo. This says, the protocol communicates that Orsato VAR audio was regularly sent to the prosecutor Pecoraro. The file was contained in an email with the subject, find out how to make money from home without effort.
Yeah.
Everything was done according to protocol word.
That's great. That's great.
That's well done. We'd have our first Italian language winner, possibly. We'll see. So,
I don't know. There's a good competition on this last one.
Yep. And the final one is a reset from February 29th because it got retweeted. This is from Mark Galliani at AC Maruk, ACMARUK. Juve winning the Serie. Again, it is a video of a track runner cheating. He has the start gun. He gets a 10-yard head start. And while he's trying to win, he's shooting all of the runners trying to keep up with him. And then they bring the finish tape to him.
This is Sacha Baron Cohen from the Dictator movie. Hilarious movie, but yeah, that's funny. That is kind of like you.
Yeah, great stuff. Great stuff.
Oh man,
and definitely relevant. All right. So which one of these wins?
Oh man, that's it's difficult. I definitely like the last one, but I might give a first-time repeat winner. I'm gonna go with Art Morelli with the Stronzi, number 38. His Photoshop job on the event. Are
we gonna have our first two-time winner?
If you go with him, yeah.
I think I have to. I like it, Art Morelli. Well played, sir, and congratulations on being the first two-time winner of Who Won Calcio Twitter. Again, and then I'm going to go ahead and retweet that for all the fine people. The Telltale Art at Art Morelli. I did my best to fix it for them. Instead of stronger, it says hashtag Stronzi. So there's effort in that, and we certainly appreciate it. So congratulations to Art. We have our first two-time winner of Who Won Calcio Twitter.
Yeah. Setting the standard high for the folks.
All right, Didi away, Caserta Campagna. Get on it. All these other guys who have won before, get on it. We have a standard that you now have to live up to. So that's that. And with that, we'll put a bow on this edition of Serie Sit Down. Shameless plug time, Richard.
Obviously follow the YouTube page here. We put out a recent video on why Caputo is maybe the right man for the Azzurri to lead them to the Euros. So go check that out. And then, just follow me at R_KHARMAN on anywhere on social media, I guess. So
awesome. You can find me. You can see my handle there at FTC_21 if you're watching this on the YouTube channel. Again, drop a like, subscribe, helps us out big time. We appreciate it. Serie Sit Down can be found. We have our own channel on Apple Podcasts and SoundCloud. We can find on Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, anywhere where there's podcasts, there's Serie Sit Down. The YouTube page, as we mentioned, please subscribe. and hit the notification button for whenever we're dropping new videos and new content, so that you can be informed and you can be up to date with where we're coming from in the world of Calcio.
I feel bad. I feel bad real quick because last time we had a bunch of podcasts that were on the chat, and the one group I didn't mention was the Calcio guys. So I'm gonna give them a shout out because I feel bad that they were on and that the one group I didn't mention. So ciao guys.
Good people. Good people.
Absolutely.
You went up to visit them. They let you in. They let you into their homes, and you've left them out.
That's right. I know. Terrible person. I know. They're like typical American.
At Serie Sitdown on Twitter, Instagram, or check us out on Facebook. We're all over the place on the social media landscape. If you want to get away from your friends' stupid political posts, check out our pages there. And that's that. We're going to be back Tuesday night, Richard.
Yeah, Tuesday night. It's going to be a lot of Serie A action, a lot of big games. I can't wait.
We'll have the first couple of Champions League games in the books as well. So we'll get back together with you guys on Tuesday night. I've got to go and look into this Milan Weekly Pod thing a little bit deeper to see if Steve's being serious or if he's had too much of the grappa tonight.
Invite yourself.
Well, of course. So, in any event, want to thank you all for taking the time to listen to us. And as always, make sure you tell your paisans about us. Ciao.